Good evening. Everything is copacetic. It's great. It's
Everything's going
good.
good.
Everything is going on just terrifically, as expected, you know.
Excellent. How come you're not outside, man? It's nice outside. How come
Well,
you
it's
not out
kind
there?
of cloudy. I mean, actually, it's kind of cool out. But yeah, I thought about it. If it would have been sunny and the temperature would have been the same, I think I would have went outside. But they keep saying that it might rain, and I said, well, I had the several projects that I'm working on, so I just said I'm just gonna put my head down and just bang out what I need to bang out in terms of these projects and whatnot. So I thought at least this week and maybe perhaps next week, I'll get a chance to go back outside to my other desks outside, which is my preference to
Good.
be at. I prefer to be out there. And you, how are you doing?
Man, I'm good, man. Today just spent a lot of time relaxing. Like I told you in our green room, I was spending a lot of time on email, and now I'm trying to disconnect myself from as much, um, digital connections as possible. With the
Yes.
exception of maybe phone calls and Zoom calls, like I really want to disconnect from email and at least cut my the time that I spend on social media by 50%.
Okay. Mhm.
So I've done that, which is good because it allows me to kind of focus and think and stay present as much as possible. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
other
I
than that,
do.
I'm enjoying the day because I don't have the air conditioning on because it's so cool outside. I just open the windows up and just let the
Hey,
air come in.
same here. Same here. Yeah, we just open up the window, let some fresh air in.
Yeah, let
Yeah.
some fresh air in here, save some money because my air conditioner's been going nonstop for the last few weeks because it's been 90 degrees. I don't know how it is where everybody else is, but where we live, it's been like 90 degrees, 80 degrees outside. So I was
Right.
I was able to come into my second office up here, just to kind of get a different movement in the room. So this is my second office when I'm not downstairs in my cave. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
other than that, everything has been going good. I know today I wanted to change gears a little bit and talk about romantic love,
Yeah.
and I think that this will be an interesting topic for a lot of different individuals. I have a quote that I would like to share with you, and I have some questions that I want to ask you as well. If we get to it, fine. If not, then we'll get to it maybe next week.
Okay.
But essentially, for me, it at least occurs to me that we have an obsession with romantic love, as far as you
Could
know.
you could you could you tell us in your words what is meant by romantic love? What is meant by that?
So I think I think first what I was taught romantic love is just like some very mysterious thing. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just like an energy that just comes out of nowhere that you have no control over, that just takes over you when it hits you. Now granted, I don't this is not my definition of what romantic love is. I think it's more to it than that. But as far as what I've been taught, romantic love is just some mysterious thing that happens to you. Like you walk into a room and you see a woman, and you automatically get slapped with some
So isn't that
mysterious
it?
force that causes you to gravitate towards somebody, almost like it's like a spiritual thing or ghostly thing. I don't know. But I think that as I've grown and I've matured, I think it's evolved past that. It's not that I don't think romantic things isn't necessary. I just feel like the way we are taught about it can be very destructive.
Okay.
So what I want
Okay.
to do with you, Dr. Boy, I want to ask you first because I've already kind of given a description on what my thoughts around it is. But are you familiar with Toni Morrison?
Yes.
Okay, so
Mhm.
I'm not as familiar as Toni Morrison as probably I should be, but I've been reading some of his stuff, and some of the things I've been reading
Her
have been
stuff. Her stuff.
her stuff. Sorry, her stuff. But what she said, which I thought was very interesting. I quoted her on something. It says, "Romantic love is one of the most destructive ideas in the history of human thought." So I want to say that to you, and I want to get your thoughts about, well, what do you think about that? Why would she say something like that? Or
Well,
what are your thoughts about that?
okay, so that hits me in a lot of different places. Okay, so I would offer this is that my understanding of romantic love, it's feelings based. So it's a feelings based approach to a connection to someone else. So I just put it out there. So it's feelings based. And so we know, at least in the world, feelings are unpredictable and they're not controllable. They happen, and you just have to. They're experiences. So to that, I could see where Tony would say that, and to say where it's destructive, it would lend itself to all of the things that a great researcher in Brene Brown. Brene Brown is one of my most favorite researcher out of the University of Houston, would say that our culture, and she was particularly referring to American culture, is addicted to feelings. And this is what she says would support that. We love food, we love stuff, we love uh, uh, um, um, drugs, legal and illegal. We love. We don't want to deal with our feelings. One of the things that are happening um, in this the so-called trifecta, and generally the coronavirus, is that it's forcing people to look at themselves, and they're going to go. Some of them are going crazy. They said, I can't look in the mirror this long. It's too painful. It's too painful to look at me. Okay. So I would assert that it's almost an American cultural phenomenon facilitated by Hollywood. That it's feeling. It's how do you feel? Okay. And in my work, that is just an entry point to the kind of larger conversation that you and I, and certainly Learning to Be Human, is trying to get to. It's just an entry point. It's not the real deal. It's just getting you there. And a lot of us will use romantic love almost like a commodity, or almost like a consumable product. You know, I want to feel a certain way, and I'm connecting with you because you allow me to feel that way. Okay. And when you don't allow me to feel that way, I'm moving on to somebody else, because what I want is the feeling. That's what I want. I want the feeling. And that there's something to that, but it's not the real thing. It's not the real thing. The best person, for those of us on this call that want to just go to a deeper dive, the best person that I would say puts this in context, makes it a little bit more linear, is this guy by the name of Robert Sternberg, and he came up with this. Romantic love is like three parts, and they interact with one another. And it's the interaction between intimacy, commitment, and passion. And so that's how he describes it. And so it's a feeling, it's a psychological feeling that is generated through intimacy, commitment, and passion. Now, I don't know if I don't know if I think it's dangerous or it's destructive. I will say this is that, and you and I have said this over the last few weeks. Some of us are asleep and we're not awake to what does it take to be human, and we just mindlessly fitter around and bounce from relationship to relationship. And as you know, if you look at our culture, we live in a cancel culture. I hear that term now, or you know, if I'm not feeling you, I got to go to something else. And I'm not saying that one doesn't do that, or I'm not saying that there's not a benefit to that. I'm saying that it is an appetite that cannot be quenched because it's always going to be something else. I mean, you always want to feel a certain way. Does that help you? Does that you have a follow up on that, Andre?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that back to the quote that Tony had brought down, which I thought was a very interesting quote. She goes on to kind of speak on how essentially the biggest question when it comes to love is it a choice or is it an action? And when you turn love into something that is a feeling isn't like you don't choose that. It's just something that just kind of happened chemically. You know what I'm saying? Like if I see a woman that is attractive, like there's some chemistry that's going on that's allowing me to be attracted to that woman versus choosing to love someone is totally different because now you're making a psychological choice that, hey, I'm going to accept this person for who they are, regardless of who they are, and then put into the work to actually get to know them on a deeper level. And maybe the reason why she's saying that is that we totally neglect that second part. It's not that the attraction is necessarily a bad thing. I think that's part, like how you said, it's definitely a part of it. The chemical and the physical and the feeling parts, those are all a part of it, but it's not the part of it. But then to your point, what you said, which I think is probably the most important thing to talk about, is that this is something that's portrayed through advertised to us on a day-to-day basis. You know what I'm saying? It's not like how you said it's in Hollywood. I mean, it's in Hollywood, but it's also in advertising a lot. Advertisers use this a lot to get you to buy their products. I mean, it's just like, okay, if it makes you feel good, you love it. And if you love it, you need to take it in. Yes. And when you don't love it anymore, get rid of it. And that certainly matches up with the data, which says that, after about 4 or 5 years of being married, I mean, nix that person. That person isn't, they're not giving you that feeling anymore. But it's totally natural that you don't necessarily get that feeling. But we think that we have fallen out of love, and then we move on to the next person. I mean, and just to pick on myself a little bit, I mean, I remember doing that very often. I would get girlfriends and I would have that feeling. And I'm like, oh, yes, this is the feeling I've been looking for. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And then I would get to the point where that feeling's not there no more. And I'd be searching for the feeling from someone else. You know what I'm saying? And I always thought that, well, if you love someone, this is the feeling that you're supposed to have forever. You know what I'm saying? You're not ever supposed to be mad at them because you always should feel like there's this mysterious thing that's taking over you for the rest of your life. It's just like it's a mysterious thing. It had nothing to do with what you can control. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's very interesting that Tony has described it like that. What do you think?
So the notion, like you said, on the feelings and whatnot, it's an important notion in our culture. And the reason why I say that is because that some of the so-called luminaries that are anthropologists and sociologists and study and interact with one another would assert that we live in a culture of teenagers or 13-year-olds. And so the notion of making love into a consumable product, making it so that I can eat it up, I can possess it myself. It's inherent in how we live life. We live in a tremendous consumer based culture. We just need to understand that. I'm not trying to make a judgment out of that. You know, our capitalist system is designed to be materialistic and consumer based. You need to eat something forever and more forever, and that's the mindset. And so it's the same thing with this illusion. Like you can ask a drug user, once you have this drug, the next time you have it, it's going to take more, or it's not going to be the same experience. So you keep furthering around for the next big high, and you're thinking that the universe world is not allowing you to be fully actualized. It's taking away your love. And I would offer that people that have done the work and that are in some would call it a higher level of maturation and understanding about this thing we call life, have transcended that and look at that, like you're saying, it's much more complicated than that. And then love, as you can see, we're talking about love in terms of couple. Like, that's it. That's not it. You know, that's part of it. You know, you have love between children, siblings. You have love with just people in general. You know, you have, do Black Lives Matter? It's a love conversation. And it has nothing to do with all the biology and whatnot. It's a mind, it's a maturity that you start understanding things at another level. And that's what we're trying to say. We're trying to say that true fulfillment, true well-being is inclusive. It's a unified way. It includes, don't exclude, it includes everything. So it's not just the relationship that we have with our spouses, our children. It also includes the relationship that we have with our neighbor. And the mentality or the maturity that it takes to have a relationship with somebody, to call it the other, somebody that's different than us, requires a certain amount of maturity. And as you can see, we're growing into that. And I would also offer that I am so excited that I see more people able to grasp that, you're not going to give me the fool's gold. I want not only that, but I want more. You can see, especially in the Generation Zs and the millennials in general, they kind of get this. Okay, in my work, the individuals that I see that get this the least is probably people in my generation. It becomes a commodity. How can I grab some love like a phone? And okay, try that and see how that works for you.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you brought up the fact that we talk about romantic love. I don't even think we have to even say romantic love to go towards what you're talking about as far as like the love between a man and a woman. Like, that's what we think about, right? Like, I think that a lot of times, even when you say the word love, it even brings you towards, we must be talking about a relationship between a man and woman or sex. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've been doing this small experiment on the people that are around me, and I just been telling them that I love them, particularly my guy friends. Yeah. And it's interesting of the guys who say it back or don't say it back or try to say it back in like a sly way, you know what I'm saying? So for example, if I say, hey, I love you, bro, have a good day. And some of my guys will be like, oh yeah, right back at to you. Or they'll say something they catch them off guard. I think I don't want to speak for them, but I think in their mind they're thinking, they're equating it to something romantic, like this feeling like, oh, like, if I say I love you, or if I think I love you, this must mean I have a romantic interest in you or some stuff like that. But really it's far more expanding than that. But how we are taught is that when we say love is that, oh, it's got to be a romantic thing. It's this feeling, and if you don't have the feeling, it can't be love. And I really want to nail home that today in our conversation. The last thing that I do want to bring up is how this kind of connects to the false self. Now, I don't know if you remember, Dr. Bowie, but earlier on in our sessions, maybe our first or second sessions, we had a conversation about the false self. The false self is particularly interesting to me because as a counselor, it bumps. I fall into, like, I see it a lot. I see the false self a lot being played out. And so for those people that weren't there when we were having that conversation, I want to give a quick overview of what the false self is and how it connects to this thing. And so how I understand it, and I want your feedback on this as well, Dr. Bowie, is essentially is that, so, when we're kids, right, our primary teacher is our parents, right? Our parents are the first teacher, and we grab a lot of things from our parents. Now, yes, we grab a lot of things from our environment as well, but our parents essentially are our primary teacher. And so when we're going through that relationship, what children typically do is they're looking for that love in their parents, because that connect they need that connection in order to survive. Like, human beings need to be with other human beings in order to survive. And so what I see a lot of times what people will do when they're younger, at least, is that they will change around their personalities so those first teachers will be able to love them the way that they're looking to get love from, which then throughout this process creates the false self. And it's something that everybody does.
So just to add to that, and I want you to continue with this conversation about the false self. It's a performance model. It's, your parents teach you, well, if you're good, then I'll love you. Or if you do good in school, I'm going to withhold my affection. And we do it almost subliminally. We just find ourselves withholding because it's conditioned. My love for you is conditioned on you doing what I say.
Right.
If you don't do what I say, I don't love you. And so children, like you said, vicariously, they're learning that.
Right.
That's what they're learning.
Right.
In the culture.
Right. And so, and you're right. And it's something that I don't know if there's a way that we stop doing that. I just think that it's just the way it is. I mean, children, in order to protect themselves, to remain connected to their group, they have to develop that false self and almost to protect themselves. Like you said, it's a performance model. I have to perform in order to be, with my people. And so what happens is that this is necessary for a child and a child's psychology in order to survive. However, we hold on to that long after we need it. We hold on to it into, our teenage years and into our adult years. And I think this is where you're kind of going at when you say that we as a society operate as a society of 13-year-olds. It's because of, partly because of this model that we have, where it's like, okay, well, we need this false self to protect ourselves. So then when we're in our 20s and our 30s and we get into those times where we're needed to develop those relationships that are very important to us, that false self is still there if we're not aware of it, right? And so we're projecting our false self to our mate because we think that, in order to be this person's friend, I need to put up the false self. In order to get this person in a relationship, I need to put up the false self. I mean, it's not just a romantic thing, but it's for anything. It's for relationships. It's for your relationships with your kids. I mean, we got to put up that false self in order to continue to receive the love. But the problem with that is that the false self is false. And so essentially, we go back to our root self, And people see that and they're like, well, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? What happened to the nice person that you used to be that did everything that I wanted you to be? You know, now you're not that person no more. So now I don't love you anymore. You know, you've changed. And so I think that's very interesting. Again, I don't know anybody that hasn't necessarily gone through that, but my question for you is, well, first of all, I mean, do you have anything to add to what I just said? 'Cause I have one more question before we go.
Well, you said it. We've said this on these talks before. The most important job on the planet is being a good parent, and our culture doesn't value good parents. You know, we just don't value. The reason why I say that, I look at where we put our money. You know, where does the culture put its money is what it values, regardless of what it says. There's a disconnect. And so to me, being a parent is paramount, you know, because you're given a miracle, okay, that you have to provide some type of stewardship for around 18 years. Okay, and that person can impact thousands of lives, has the potential to impact thousands of lives. And we just helter-skelter. They're almost like they're golden retrievers. They're like dogs. We just, they're cute. And when they're bad, they're on punishment, you know. Children are important. And so having that mindset, you know, I mean, I understand about the performance, but I would assert, and what I learned as a parent myself, you know, I have 4 children, and believe me, you were a trainer child, and so was your brother. I was training on that, and I look back, I made a lot of mistakes that I would come back. Oh, and I see the results of it. One of it, what is meant by love? You know, what am I teaching my children on the topic of love? Am I teaching compliance and obedience as a prerequisite for love? Generally, we tend to do that. I would that the fundamental teaching on the topic of love to children should be our FAM model. That is, does my interaction create freedom, acceptance, and mutual benefit? That's what I should be teaching you. You know, and you teach them until you release them to the world. And that's a hard time. We don't get any training on that. If you look at it strictly from a sociology standpoint, our institutions have failed us. That goes with most churches. There's churches on every corner, but there's, you know, crime galore, hatred galore. You know, our parenting has failed us because, you know, and I'm gonna talk about that if we get a chance to talk about that, because money is more than parents being a good parent. You know, that's in my own experience. I mean, I value how much money am I making. Look at this bomb house I got, and the 2 or 3 cars I got, and the spiffy vacations I'm taking you on. So I equate it into feelings. I equate it into a consumable product. So I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. Nothing's wrong with that. But that's not it, is what I'm saying. And so when you talk about the false self, what comes to me is the ego. And so this is just simple. It's a simple way to know when you're in your false self. And it goes back to some of the concepts that we talk about in LTBAs. That is, the ego cannot love. You have to get this. And some of you have to get this forever. The ego cannot love. So when you're in your stuff, you have to understand you can't love. What you can do, the design of the ego, is to judge, complain, and crave to be right. So whatever interaction that you're in, you can kind of know, is it egocentric? And there is an appropriateness to be egocentric. I mean, the ego is designed to protect you. Even if the ego has to lie to you, the ego is designed to protect you so you can feel good. That's its job. Feel good. No struggle. No sacrifice. God forbid suffering, and I'm not surrendering to anything. You're going to surrender to me.
Okay. So good explanation. I just got one quick question for you, and we got maybe about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit less. But I want to ask you this question real quick because we were talking about the ego and we're talking about the false self. And so my first question is to describe in some detail the false self that you created so that other people would love you in the past.
Oh, that's a very easy one to do. I'm going to change this person's name because they might be on this call. I'm gonna say her name. Her name is Linda. Okay, and I'm like 18. I'm like 18, and Linda, in my mind, was the finest girl I'd ever seen, and I'm 18. And so what I did, I'm starting to create this false self. I had her phone number. We talked on the phone, and I positioned her as my girlfriend. Now, we never had a conversation about it. I positioned her as my girlfriend. And why would she want me? Well, I started joining certain clubs. I had my leather sweater. I had all the trappings. I thought that would trap her. Just almost like a cactus. Opening up this. I was in this club. I had my leather sweater for being on the cross country team, and this was my girlfriend. So we went to a party, and she was there. I knew we had talked on the phone. She told me she was going to be there. What she didn't say was that a friend of mine, I'm going to say his name, I'll call him Derek. I won't say because he might be on this call too. He came there and they started fraternizing her and this Linda that I was really infatuated with. And then I confront them both. So it's like, look, why are you talking to him and dancing with him? And you're my girlfriend. And she said, I'm not your girlfriend. We just friends. And for those of us that are male, we know when we really are digging a girl and they say we're just friends, that's like a slap in the face.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was devastated. I had my leather sweater that I would let her wear. I mean, I'm building up this identity, that I'm this, I'm that. It's an identity. It's the false self. I'm building up being right. And being right is being in the right clubs, having the right stuff, saying the right things, and doing the right things. Mm-hmm. And it was just a wake-up call.
Interesting. I never heard that story before. I want to know the names. Maybe I'll get the names for you when we get off of air.
So somebody might comment and says, yeah, that was me. Why'd you bring that up on that Facebook Live? I'm suing you, the false self. I'm complain. I'm gonna sue you. That's not how it happened.
Yeah. Well, I think real quick, my example, I'll give a recent example because I think this is something that you constantly are working on, and I've certainly gotten better, but I'm still working on it. I admit that this is something I still have to be aware and conscious of, and this alerted me to it more than anything, that this is something that I need to be aware of when my false self and my ego has taken over. And there's been so long where I haven't been aware of it. So I used to work at a private Catholic institution as a counselor. And this the school that I worked at, there's a lot of very influential people who send their kids there, in downtown Chicago, in the city of Chicago. And so in this school, we had an event to where this guy, I forgot his name, but essentially what he was a pro-abortion or I'm sorry, pro, what do you call it?
Life.
Pro-life, yes, pro-life speaker.
Okay.
He's a pro-life speaker, and he came to speak. And he came there with an agenda to essentially tell the young ladies and the women in the audience, the whole school, because he gave a presentation amongst the whole school, that abortions are wrong.
Yeah, right.
You should never ever get an abortion. There's no situation where you should get an abortion.
That's right.
And so, at this school, again, I didn't know this, but I felt a lot of pressure to not be who I was, because being who I was would make me an outcast, and I thought that being an outcast in this environment would essentially affect my paycheck. Like this would be
exactly.
Yeah, this is gonna be like, you believe this? Get out of here. You're not following our belief system, So I felt like I was under a lot of pressure to be in the ego. And it was very draining for me. But I didn't realize what was going on. So this speaker came in, and essentially he said that those of you guys are going to make, if a girl comes to you talking about abortion, you need to promise me that you're going to talk this person out of it. Any woman that comes up to you, even having a inkling that they wanted to abort their child, you need to promise. And if you make that promise, you need to stand up. Now, he may have not said it exactly like that, but he said it similarly to like that. And so he made everybody in the gym stand up if they agree to do this. And I stood up, knowing in the deepest part of my mind that wasn't something that I wasn't going to be able to do, because I don't believe that. And regardless on who believes what, like I'm not going to get into the debate of on what's right and what's wrong. But the point is that I didn't believe that, so I should have sat down. But because I was in my ego, not knowing it, I was afraid of all these different consequences that was going to happen. I stood up, and that bothered me. Like I remember going to sleep, and I couldn't sleep because I essentially wasn't true to myself, and it bothered me very much.
Can I ask you a question? Wasn't your ego partially right, or your false self partially right in protecting you? Wasn't, if you didn't stand up, wasn't there implications for you not doing that was going to be a detriment to you?
There definitely could have been, or nothing could have happened. Yeah, or nothing could have happened. But yeah, I mean, if somebody who was really powerful, maybe that my boss, and if they saw me sitting down there, they could have said something, or they could have made some noise and said, "Hey, well, why aren't you standing up? You at this Catholic institution. This is what we believe, and we paying you. So why don't you believe that?" You know what I'm saying? They may have sent me to some re-education camp or whatever. But yeah, absolutely. There were definitely some implications to that. And so you're right. My ego was protecting me, but at the expense of not being who I was, which to me,
at the expense of your true self.
Right. I paid a big price for that. And so that situation I bring up as an example is always something to kind of alert me. Like I need to be aware of when I'm transitioning to a false self conversation or an ego conversation versus being my true self. And being your true self in our society, I find, is very difficult.
Yes. We want an identity. We want to fit in. And at the same time, Andre, I will assert that the more development in terms of your own self-awareness that you have for yourself, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
It just gets easier. The more you know you and how you operate, it just gets easier for you to be able to have the courage, as Brene talks about, to stand alone and just say, well, this is just where I'm at. And if you don't agree with me, I'm not trying to make you mad. I'm saying this is where I'm at.
Right. And that's where our organization, I think, can do. I mean, not to throw a plug out there. I mean, to me, our organization have some practices in place to where we could train people on an influential level to be able to do that to themselves. You know what I'm saying? Because the consequence of that, in my opinion, when you're not aware of it, can be very great. So I'm going to pause it there. Good conversation. Thank you, Dr. Bowie, for your insights. You gave us some really good insights. Those of you guys that have questions or want to put together some examples, feel free to comment on our page, like our page. We really want to get the word out there about what we're about, learning what learning to be humans is about, and what we're interested in doing for awakening the world to love. Dr. Bowie, again, thank you very much. You have a great night, and I will see you next week, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. God bless.
All right. We